Across the Western world, a key question facing intelligence agencies is how the current phase of the Ukraine war might end. Their record in predicting the scale and timing of Russia's attack was impressive.
We have reason to believe the Russian forces are planning to and intend to attack Ukraine in the coming week, in the coming days.
And as the Kremlin's invasion force built up, it could be observed by professional spy masters and amateur sleuths alike, using commercial satellite imagery, TikToks and all the rest. But publicising Russia's moves in advance was a new tactic.
There was a particular situation that was being faced. It was clear and known to the defence and security authorities in the US and the UK that this build-up was taking place. Can it make a difference if we speak about it more publicly? But first of all, you need to be convinced that it's worth it. There's something worthwhile to be gained. And then secondly, you need to make sure that the cost is manageable. That seems to have happened.
Sir John Scarlett was among former spy masters who gathered at Bletchley Park today for the launch of a book called The Real Special Relationship. And there's little doubt that the wartime code-breaking cooperation born here still has an effect on US and UK policy on Ukraine and more widely. Of course, that UK-US special relationship in signals intelligence is cherished by the two countries, but sometimes resented by other allies. And even when they're not resenting it, the likes of France and Germany have their own sources of secret information and their own national interests. And that's coming to the fore at a moment like this, when these countries are trying to decide how to move ahead with Russia and President Putin while the Ukraine war continues. Visiting Turkey this morning, Vladimir Putin was kept waiting by President Erdogan. Some saw it as a sign of a diminished role overseas, and suddenly a former CIA director argues there's little chance of a reset in Russia relations while Putin remains.
Until Russia, the country, the government, recognizes the error of its ways, and I don't think Mr. Putin is able to acknowledge that this was wrong. I don't think he can acknowledge it politically or psychologically. And so therefore I think it's going to be a protracted conflict that's probably going to have highs and lows in terms of the intensity of the battles and the violence. But I think that it's going to be years before we're going to be able to repair the damage in Ukraine, as well as allow Russia to once again, I think, become a member of the international community.
The thing about the Anglophone view, whether it's based on a common secret history or broader interests, is that it's not shared by many Western allies, and keeping a common front on Russia won't be easy.
I think it will be hard. There'll be countries like Italy, Germany, and to a lesser extent perhaps France and Hungary, for example, going against what Britain and America think they should do. But you've got to remember Poland and the Baltic republics, who are very strong, will keep wanting to go the way that Britain and America want to go.
Given that early optimism in the agencies that Vladimir Putin might fall has now evaporated, and the Kremlin is openly stating an agenda of reconquest of large amounts of what it calls Russian lands, some argue that complete isolation is too dangerous.
There needs to be, as far as possible, mutual understanding on both sides, and that mutual understanding seems to be very limited at the moment. And so, it's dangerous.
Do you think it's possible then for the West to get back to a more or less normal relationship with Russia as long as President Putin is still in power?
I think it's a mistake to over-Putinize it. And that's what, there's that risk that happens, because it is not just a question of obsessions of Vladimir Putin. There clearly is quite a wide body of opinion which exists and is expressing itself in Russia, because after all, there's a lot of criticism at the moment from the more militant side of the right wing, if you like, or whatever we call it in Russia, which is heavily critical of the Russian government for not being tougher.
And indeed, whether Putin passes from the scene sooner or later, the bitter memories of this war will outlast him, and the management of a nuclear-armed Russia on Europe's borders will keep the spies busy for years to come.